Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is NoLimitsNick, and welcome to another episode of the Elitist Gaming Podcast. As always, I will be your host for tonight, and I'm joined by two lovely gentlemen going to talk to you guys about a genre that, once again, I am not all too familiar with, and maybe you aren't too familiar with as well. We're going to talk about the genre of card games, not the Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon card games that we all grew up with as children, but the modern ones where it's on your phone, your computer, your laptop, whatever digital device you have. What games are involved, do you say? Hearthstone, Magic the Gathering, I believe Yu-Gi-Oh! Has made one as well, or whatever card game based on a famous game or show is out there. It's all on digital now. Joining me today, I have, once again, Mr. Fluffy.
I am dabbing. You can't see it right now, but I am dabbing.
And my second guest is Double.
Hello.
All right, gentlemen. So you get
Such an exciting intro from Double. Just hello.
Hey, they know who I am.
They know him by now after his latest episode.
3.
But I'm gonna let you guys take this one because
Yeah.
I don't know jack about these games. I've seen a few esports, but I've just played these games for super fun. So, like the audience, I barely know anything about this genre.
Yeah, for sure. So when it comes to first of all, it's a digital card game, and it has a lot of things that you can't do in normal card games and stuff. And depending on what game you play, you can't do in real life card games compared to what you do in online card games. So I'll start up for like the biggest and the most famous game is definitely, when it comes to like online TCGs, or known as trading card games, is Hearthstone. Hearthstone, when you think of like any like online like card game, like the first thing that really comes to your mind is Hearthstone. And Blizzard was really one of the first companies that really went into like the online like TCG era. There were like a few like third party stuff for like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic for like playing card games, but this is like an actual game made by the company.
So,
go ahead.
So for people at home, it's like, since it's a digital trading card game, do I have to buy my cards, or can I earn them just through playing the game itself?
It does have this.
Both,
yeah, it does have this free to play model, but there is.
So the main thing with it is, so you can't earn cards for free in some ways. So Hearthstone has a gold system where one pack of cards is 100 gold, and you can choose from different sets. They have sort of like, okay, there's this many cards that come in this expansion, so you can choose a pack from said expansion, and then you get I think it's 5 cards from that expansion, and you're guaranteed at least one rare in there. Magic, probably for people familiar with it, started in the real world. Magic packs, like real world card game packs, are a bit different in how they operate, because you can't have like duplication protection or anything on them. But for the online game, it's 1,000 of their gold thing gets you a pack. But there's also, so Hearthstone, another way you can spend gold is on arena mode, which is 150, or you can pay, $3 for a free run?
For Hearthstone, it's $1.99 for an arena run.
So it's $2. Okay, so it's $2 for an arena run. And basically you draft 30 cards, you get offered 3 cards at a time, and you draft 30 different cards for a deck.
Okay.
And then you play games until you lose 3 times, or you win 12 times, and then you get rewards based on how many times you lose and win, which can be gold, dust you can use to craft the specific cards you want, or card packs. Magic does a little bit different stuff. They don't have like a set kind of arena game mode. It kind of rotates over time. For the one I'm referring to is Magic the Gathering Arena. That's their like big one right now. Normally it's like about 5,000 gold, and then you do a similar draft, but you start with picking from 15 cards, and then you pick one, and then it gives you 14 new cards, and you go down until you've picked 15 cards, and then you do that 2 more times, and you get to keep all the cards you pick. So you're incentivized to pick like rare cards that you don't own yet, and then you play until you lose 3 times or win 7, I think, and then you get packs and the microtransaction currency, the gems, based on how many times you win. And yeah, that's the main ways the two do it. And then Magic has its own way to craft the specific card you want to. They're called wild cards. You get them after opening a certain number of packs, or you can get them in a pack instead of because like each pack has at least 1 rare. So instead of a rare, you might just get a wild card rare, which you can use to craft any rare you want. And those, you get them less often, but they only need 1 to craft something from the rarity, rather than Hearthstone, which uses all the dust, and it's like 1600 dust for a legendary, but only like 40 dust for a common.
Yes, it's really weird how to factor. So in Hearthstone, you get the value of a common is 20. When you disenchant it, you get 5 dust back.
That's
you get a fourth of the value of the card back.
Yeah, it's pretty lenient. Like, if you want to play them competitively, because both games are free to play, so you can just play casually if you want. But if you want to play it competitively, there's really no way around spending money on it. Like, unless you are so good at Arena that you can constantly get funds from it.
To break even in Arena, you have, or like, quote unquote, break even / profit from Arena. What you need to do is to get at least 7 wins, and that's where you get a card back, at least 150 gold, and like one more other item that you want. Whether it be a random card or just straight dust, which usually mean the exact same thing, because 9 times out of 10 you're getting a card that you're just instantly disenchanting after you play Arena.
Jeez. So it seems like this game is like, so it seems like to play competitively, you need to like spend some money on it.
Yeah, like
pretty much.
Like how much would you say you guys have spent?
I haven't spent money on either of them at all.
Okay, so you haven't spent $1. What about you, Fluffy?
I just played it casually.
Ugh, God, do I want to give you a number?
give us like a healthy estimate.
Actually, no, that's not true. On Magic, they had like a what is it? It's like a beginner one-time buy thing. We give you this many things and this many packs if you spend $10 on this thing. So I did that because it came with some specific cards that I wanted because they were good. So I did that, but like, I'm not planning on paying for anything in the future.
Oh, God.
All right.
Let me think. Oh, I've been playing this game since beta. I did get a new account at one point. So I'd say somewhere upwards, I'd say like $500.
Oh!
Since
What?
And I've been playing, maybe more like 300-ish area.
Okay. That's still a lot.
Because I mostly save up coins, but I only usually spend about maybe $60 per expansion at like the maximum, and
so the equivalent of a full price game.
Hearthstone has
every 3 months, and that's every 3 months.
Hearthstone has a pre-order thing they do every new expansion. Let me see if there's
Yeah, there is one for the newest expansion, right?
Yeah, because Hearthstone's right now in the process of releasing its new expansion. It's going to come sometime in April, so they're
early April.
Yeah, they're slowly unveiling their cards while it builds up to that day. So
I mean, I've seen some of their reveals at BlizzCon with their now former creative director who got the crowd so hyped about it. I know.
Ben Brode, yeah, Ben Brode was pretty cool.
Yeah, Ben Brode was like a big meme. But hey,
the way
you guys got phones.
Yeah. The way Hearthstone, the worst, it used to, when it first came out, is that they'd have a big expansion and then they'd have an adventure expansion in between. So the big expansion would be like what the expansions are now, which is like 150
cards usually.
150? Yeah.
Yeah,
so
usually like 150, 130.
that many cards, and then the adventures would be basically, instead of buying packs for cards, they'd have preset encounters you'd play against like an AI deck that has some gimmick associated to it, and you get a card for each encounter you beat, and they'd slowly unlock the encounters over like a period of 4 weeks, and there'd be like 4 encounters each. So the first one was Curse of Naxxramas.
Yeah, so
And
the
for
Nax
that, you could
and ICC.
yeah, you could buy the whole thing for
like $14, or you can pay like
it was
I think
700
it was like
gold. It was
700 gold.
gold.
So
And-
usually, like, to put it in equivalent, 100 gold is about $1 in Hearthstone
Okay.
terms.
Yeah.
So
The trade-off is that you know what cards you're getting from each wing, and you're guaranteed a legendary at the end of
at
each
the end,
wing.
yeah.
So for Naxxramas, I'm trying to remember what the cards.
So you had
Hearthstone's thing right now is that for its pre-purchases, you get 50 packs for $50. You get a card back and then a random legendary.
Okay.
and also they added a new thing. It's like kind of like hero skins, or like
Yeah, it's like some of them you can get for like 3 ways. Some of them you
yeah,
just
there's
buy,
like
basically.
Mecha Jiraxis. there was,
Yeah. The
They do have some pretty silly names.
yeah.
the way Hearthstone works is there's 9 classes. They each have their own thing, so you can buy new hero portraits for them.
You can get the first Lich King. I forgot his name.
Prince Arthas
You can get Arthas when you do.
he's still a paladin.
Yeah.
Some of them you can earn through like free ways, but most of them you
Okay,
buy.
so there's cosmetic and gameplay rewards.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's the only cosmetic reward. There's nothing else. Magic is a bit different in how the like customization of decks works. Is you have 5 colors: red, blue, green,
African American.
yeah, black and white. Yeah.
Oh.
What do you say?
What? That was funny.
That was a good one.
So yeah, there's the 5 colors, and you can make a deck out of any combination of those colors that you want. The main thing is you have to consider is that the way Hearthstone's kind of works is that in Hearthstone you start off with like 1 mana each turn, 1 mana at the game, and then you gain 1 each turn up to 10.
Mm-hmm.
For Magic, the cards you play to like your mana, they're cards you play, so you have to draw them from your deck, and you have to like put them in your deck to begin with. So you can make a deck that's a combination of any colors. You just have to make sure that you can balance the land with
the mana. Yeah,
the mana with the actual card.
So you gotta balance.
Sometimes because there's RNG elements in card games, obviously. So sometimes you get screwed by not getting enough or getting too much, and there's just not a lot you can do about it. But generally, decks can try to find a way to avoid that. It's just sometimes you lose because of that.
Usually, Magic has a lot better. It's called, I believe, search tools than I would say Hearthstone has, because it's just a little bit how differently the game plays. So it's usually not that hard to find like cards that you're looking for compared to Hearthstone. In Hearthstone, you just have to there are a few cards that allow you to get specific cards, but it's more broad than I'd say if you were playing Yu-Gi-Oh, where you can have a card that literally says search and find this specific card.
There's a system like that in Magic for a couple cards, but they're normally pretty pricey. So like, there's a black card called Mindbender's Ambition. I think it's like 4.
Wait, that's a strike and a shotgun.
I have that shotgun too.
Yes, I do. It's called Mindbender.
Wait,
hold on.
That's a shotgun. Yo, you gotta put up a picture of the shotgun, Nick.
Hold on, I'll find it.
No, you should ask Hooded to like have the card My Meter's Eviction, but just as the picture, just put the shotgun.
Curated as well.
I'm pretty sure
Curated.
it's a card. Am I mixing up the names?
You might be.
I think you might be mixing
No,
up the names.
I'm pretty sure it's a rare card. It's a black card. It costs 4 mana. So that's another thing. That's the way the cards work. Is that there's a card in the top right for Magic will have a
mana requirement.
A mana requirement, but it can. So like, if a card costs 1 red and 1 green, and then it has like a white circle with the number 2 in it, then you need 1 red mana, 1 green mana, and then 2 of any color mana.
Sure.
And so if it has 2 black, that means that you specifically need 2 black. So that's for the case of like multicolored decks. I swear this is a card.
I think I found it. It's this
Mindbenders.
Disten Mindbender.
No, it's like the picture. The art on it is like a big gear. Hold on, I'm gonna.
Oh, it's not. It's not a man like being destroyed by like black.
No, it's like a big gear that's like floating. Okay, the card's effect. It allows you to search for any one specific card in your deck, or in Magic, you can have a 15 card side deck. Because normally in Magic, it's best of 3s.
Mm-hmm.
So you have your main deck, and then you have a side deck of 15 cards that in between games you can rotate cards in and out. So you can use the second effect of Mindbenders is that you can choose a card from that pile to put into your hand. So Magic has effects like that where you can draw specific cards, and then Hearthstone's been adding them.
Yeah,
lately.
they've been improving it. I think the one card I'm thinking of is a 7-drop from I only put my Hearthstone so I can get specific cards. I remember it's a 7-drop that's like draw a rush, taunt, and lifesteal minion be added with
you're thinking
Witchwood expansion.
Yeah, you're thinking of Countess Ashmore. It's Lifesteal, Rush, and Death Rattle.
Yeah, Lifesteal, Rush,
and then there's another one earlier that was a 7 mana 4/6 taunt that was draw a beast, Murloc, or Dragon.
Oh yeah, that was from the League of the League. Yeah,
that was from Karazhan when the.
Oh yeah, that's from Karazhan.
Karazhan.
Yeah. So Hearthstone, for those who don't know, is based on World of Warcraft.
Woo!
So they take most of their inspiration, like in expansions and stuff, from World of Warcraft, and they give it generally a more humorous and lighthearted tone.
Yeah, they do.
So like in Naxxramas, the main antagonist of that was Kel'Thuzad, and in Hearthstone, he's kind of like a really big joke.
He's a more funny and wittier guy than his counterpart in Warcraft 3.
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
Mr. Bigglesworth.
Mr. Bigglesworth.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you face Jiraxis, Elder God, Lord of the Burning Legion. You know.
Yeah. So Hearthstone generally tries to stay lighthearted because of that, especially in kind of like its card design and it's like.
It's Countess Ashmore is the name of the card. Rush, Lifesteal, and Death Rattle.
Although surprisingly, it hasn't seen any play.
So
yeah, it was actually rated like one of the higher cards from that expansion.
Because it was like just a better curator. It just turns out that there's no deck where you want to put those 3 specific kinds of cards into.
Yeah. I mean, the best thing I think of is like Ziliax, but you basically run Ziliax in like almost every deck now anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
So anyway, what we're kind of just rambling here. What do you want to know about the esports?
So the esports scene. So I have seen maybe a match or 2 of Hearthstone, and from what I gathered, there were 3 dudes face off against another 3 dudes, and they were playing one deck of cards. So what is?
So I can explain this.
Yeah.
Because I know this from my personal experience. So you're thinking more of TESPA. So TESPA is the collegiate league for Hearthstone, where it's more of a team rather than most professional tournaments is usually just one person.
Okay.
Solo. And so basically what you do is you have to first start off with 4 decks. And it's the best of 5 series, and each side gets to ban 1 deck. And so after that 1 deck, it's first to whoever wins with all 3 decks. So if you win with 1 deck, you cannot use that deck anymore, and you have to win with the other decks. And that's usually how it is for most competitive deck. You choose 4 decks, each of you ban 1 deck, and it's the best of 5. But recently, I saw a change. They tried out one tournament where basically, instead of bringing 4 decks, you just bring 1 deck, and they allowed you to pick out, I think, maybe 5 or 10 cards. I think it's 5 cards that you can tech in or out, depending on what the matchup was. So, I don't like that change, mostly because it makes it extremely boring to watch. Like, Hearthstone is kind of really hard to watch in general, But when you're just watching a tournament, like, because the tournament was like 70% of the people who entered played Hunter.
Yeah, I think I've heard you complain about that.
Like, Hunter right now is one of the strongest strongest archetypes right now, because it's not just, unlike most decks in Hearthstone, it's usually like one deck per class that's usually overpowered. For Hunter, it's like 4.
Wasn't Druid OP for a long time as well?
Okay, going back like pre most recent expansion and pre Druid, Druid was the most annoying thing to play against because
there's always the one class that's the worst in the expansion.
Oh, it's insane.
It's been every class at this point.
I personally think Druid was the worst, because Druid, you could have 7 mana by the time your opponent only has 3. And then they could just play their cards and just OTK you. It was like, well, I couldn't do anything because he literally ramped up his entire deck. It ramped up, and I couldn't do anything.
So, my personal question before you get onto your rant again.
Yeah.
So you said about the your 2 other teammates. What are their jobs? Because obviously one person's playing. Are your 2 guys just like
basically advice?
Yeah,
saying, you should probably make this play, because there is some skill to Hearthstone in which you're keeping track of things like, oh, when did they draw this card in their hand and how long have they been holding on to it? Because that might give you, because tournaments, you pretty much know what every card everyone's running. There's no surprises in deck lists.
They give you the deck list of the opponent.
So if they have a big AoE, and obviously they're not going to play their big AoE until you have a lot of minions on your side of the board. So
play around
if they're holding a card for a long time and they're not playing it, you can kind of guess, oh, that card's probably an AoE.
That's removal.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can kind of so that's kind of what they're doing. They're kind of just keeping an eye on the whole thing, going oh yeah, they're probably playing this card, or this card probably and then they can also give because there's a lot of RNG elements, so sometimes you kind of have to just wing it and hope you get.
Oh yeah, I know that from personal
lucky
experience.
to get. Yeah, you kind of have to wing it and hope you get a specific card from a specific random effect, or a specific effect from a random effect, so they can say, oh well, we have went out this way, so I'm trying to think of an example.
So,
I have one specific example I can think of. It was a tournament game last spring actually, and we were playing this deck called Quest Mage, and the whole purpose of the deck was it's basically, if you ever watch Yu-Gi-Oh, it's basically Exodia, where you just kill your opponent in one turn, and that was the whole point.
In Quest Mage, you have to play 6 cards that didn't start in your deck.
5 cards that didn't start.
5
spells.
5 spells that didn't start in your deck. Are you sure? I thought it was 6.
Yeah, let me check and open the way.
Anyway, you have to play spells that didn't start in your deck, and once you do that, you get a 5 mana card that gives you an extra turn.
It's 6 spells that didn't start in your deck.
Yeah, so you get a spell that gives you an extra turn, and then it costs 5 mana, which is half your mana, but Mage has minions in their deck that reduce the cost of cards in your hand.
Yeah,
basically, there's a card that costs 2 mana that reduces the cost of spells in your hand by 1 mana.
Its name is Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Yeah, so you can run 2 of those in your deck. So you play 2 of those. You play 2 spells that copy 2 of those. Then you play
that
extra
name
turn.
Is Molten Reflection.
Molten Reflection, or some people, there's another card that copies it while it's in your hand. Some people.
Line Manipulator. If Line Manipulator, there's another specific card. It's a 3
No,
drop.
it was the Simulacrum.
Yeah, Simulacrum.
Yeah. So anyway, you get 4 of those on the board. Then you play a legendary that when you cast a spell, it gives you a 4 mana spell that deals 6 damage, and because of the 4 things, it costs 0 mana. So you play another spell with that, and then you have
open the Waygate.
And then
you play the epic sax song. Yeah.
Yeah. No, okay,
and then you just hard BM by fireballing literally everything on their board to show how much more dominant you are.
What were we going off of with this?
Basically, I forget now.
We're basically going about how is there kind of skill involved. It's just a lot of tracking what your opponent has, what they've used. Is this the right time to play this card, or should we wait? If we are close to lethal, do we dump our damage now, or do we wait for when we have an exact lethal, and it's just a lot of just talking to your teammates and seeing what is the best play here for to have the best outcome, and really predicting for what your opponents, what they have in their hand and how they're going to play it, in a sense.
So as a viewer, like let's say I'm a viewer, I play the game a bit, and as I'm watching you guys duke it out, the two teams duke it out, we're just waiting for like that one card where we're just like, yep, that side's gonna win. They are screwed. Because I'm sure both the viewer can see both decks.
Oh yeah. The viewer can see
viewer can
both
see
decks, and they're saying like which, and it's known as Twitch chat. Normally, you don't consider Twitch chat a useful resource, if I'd say that, because most of them are filled with complete idiots that don't know how to count. But might be a little too harsh for Twitch chat, but it's true. But
have you seen Twitch chat plays Pokemon?
Hey, that was
but,
dumb luck.
But there's been a lot of instances where like, oh, this person missed lethal because they didn't play this card, and then everyone in chat spamming miss lethal, and you know, a lot of the casters say miss lethal. But there was this one like most recent tournament where it's kind of hard to explain what happened. It was basically, so one guy played this card called Togwaggle, and basically what Togwaggle does, it basically swaps your deck with your opponent, and it gives your opponent this card called a Ransom, which costs 5 mana, where you just swap your decks. But usually how it works is that the person that has the Togwaggle runs this other card called Soul Thief Azalina, who basically just copies your opponent's hand and put it in your hand. So the second you play your deck to swap back, they're just going to play it again and get the deck back.
So basically there's mirror swapping.
Yeah. And so basically this guy, it was like, I don't forget what class. One guy was playing Druid, I forgot the other class. Basically he like really outplayed him because he was running a specific deck. It's called Hakar. So basically that's the newest card from the most recent expansion. But basically what it does, shuffle I forgot, it's like a blood card, and every time you draw it, you take 3 damage and shuffle 2 more into your deck. And what you do is you just rack up the Hakars, and then you swap decks, and then they draw all the Hakars and they just die. But he messed up somehow along the way, and he was actually able to like really outplay his opponent for where even if he swapped the deck, he's gonna lose because he can just swap it back instantly, and then he's just gonna draw the car cards. And it's just really about these mind games and knowing when's the right time to play a certain card and when's it not. And it's just, don't get me wrong, this game has so much skill, but the easy way I can describe it, it's like this 70-30 split. A lot of people might disagree, but I think this is fair. 70% of the game is RNG, 30% is actual skill. And the reasoning for that is there's just so much more like RNG. You see plays where it's like a 1 in like 16,000 chance of happening, and it literally makes absolutely no sense.
Because there could be,
and the other half,
because it could be a situation where, like, let's say playing the Quest Mage deck, and you're like, I'm 1 card away from just annihilating him.
There was one time where we would have won a tournament match, but the 1 card we played that gives us more spells after a hand to unlock open the way gave us Dragon's Fury. What that card does, and I'll read it out loud for you. Read this out loud for you. Reveal a spell from your deck, deal damage equal to the cost to all minions. So if we played that card, it would have literally just killed all of our minions, and there would have been no way for us to win. So this is like in normal circumstances when you play, it's a card that rotates. It's like a spell book. It gives you 3 random spells in your hand. Normally you play that, you usually get like some like half decent cards, but we got literally the worst roll. And like there are so many like mage cards it could have pulled from, and we pulled 2 of the same card. And it's just, there's just a lot of RNG in this game, and it's, people do say it's, don't get me wrong, it's a lot of skill, but there's way more luck to this game.
I would say there's a lot of luck as well.
And that's like kind of the same way when it comes to like climbing, because there is a ranked system for this game. To be honest, the most consistent way to get to like Legend or Ranked 5 or higher, is you just gotta just play it. Like, you could be an average player, and if you just put in the time, you could easily get Legend. Like, it's just because that's how much luck this game has. If you literally just consistently are just playing this game, maybe like 2-3 hours a game, and you have at least a slightly above a 50% win rate, you could easily get Legend. Like, this game is really not that hard because it's just so much luck. If I compare it to like per se a different game, Magic, I think there's a lot more skill in Magic because there's less random effects that a physical card game can do compared to a non-physical card game can do. Because I'd say because I have a lot of experience playing Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, and Magic itself, and at most is like some cards require you to roll a dice, some cards require you to flip a coin. That's like most of the RNG besides just like specific card draws. But other than that,
yeah, for Magic, it's mostly just the thing all card games suffer from, which is, are you going to draw the card you need or are you not?
Okay.
Right.
And that's just the nature of the beast. Like, that's part of its DNA.
Yeah, and then
Right.
Magic competitive is more, it's best of threes, and you just use one
deck.
Okay.
Yeah, and then since Magic's existed outside of video games for however many years,
A long
so
time.
it's not really, it's not really.
I have a
based
question
on
when
that.
it comes to Magic. Is it more rock paper scissors than Hearthstone when it comes to like certain metas, or it's less?
Well, no, because it still has OTK decks, control decks, and
Right.
decks. Like, that's still a thing. There's a wider variety in the type of decks, or in the ways those decks come about, I'd say, because the way you mix colors together means you can kind of just go nuts with the whole process. I'm trying to think the best way to explain it. So there are some OTK decks. They're not that common because normally they cost a lot of mana to do them. But there's some that you get a certain combination of cards going and then you just kind of win. Mostly they're around taking extra turns so that you can just stack up extra turns and your opponent can't do anything. Aggro decks, the biggest ones right now is mono red, mono red and mono blue aggro.
I like how we both knew what it was.
Yeah, so
each mono red.
A thing with card games, and Hearthstone is the same way, is that each sort of class or in Magic color has some set kind of themes that are pretty consistent and common. So green is about big
Ramping.
creatures and getting out big creatures really easily, and
Also ramping.
Ramping. Red is about doing lots of immediate damage and doing it cheaply. Blue's a lot of counter spells and preventing your opponent from doing certain things. Black's a lot of
being in the hood and knowing the struggle.
No, black's a lot of instant kills and
resurrections and stuff like that.
I wouldn't say black has a lot of resurrections.
White's
and then white's more
token.
White's more healing, and they have some flying with their angel cards, and you can find most things across every deck. It's just that there are certain things you can expect out of each color, and then there's the way you combine those colors. So blue green combined is often Merfolk deck, which is an aggressive deck, and that relies on having a lot of small minions that buff each other.
And
or
black and white would have to be more vampire.
Black and white's like vampires, which is about you gaining life and your opponent losing it. And then such and such. So there's a lot more creativity in the deck building for Magic, I said, especially since you don't have a hard limit on how many cards you need in Hearthstone. Each deck is 30 cards, and you can have 2 copies of each card, 1 copy of a legendary. Magic is you can have 4 copies of any card, and I think the minimum's 40 cards or 60 cards. It's depending on the format. No, the minimum's either 60 or 40 depending on the format, but you can have as many cards in your deck as you want. It's just you often want to keep it as small as possible so that you don't
draw your cards.
So your draws aren't bad. Because if you can put 120 cards into your deck. Good luck drawing one of the 4 copies of what you need.
Right, and kind of the same goes for Hearthstone. Like each class is like usually a specific type of thing, but can usually branch out to other things depending on what cards are printing in the set. Like normally mage, normally when it comes to like mage, there's usually wrapped around either mostly spells, and that's like the main focus. So if you either have an aggro deck or a control deck, you will have some sort of spell focused deck. Like the only one I can think of that's not really like spell focus is cards that run elementals, or there's a specific card where it's like draw 3 cards, and if it's spell, discard that card. It's usually where it's found. If you're playing Hunter, it's mostly focused around beast cards. Yeah, mostly beast beast related cards, or like it's a hunter supposed to be with beasts. Like druid is a lot of ramping, like growing. It's like compared to trees, and like more aggro versions like tokens having like very small things that you can easily just put out in the field. Warlock is like demons, and the more aggro version is it's called Zoo, which basically is just like the most annoying thing in the world to play against. It's just very cheap cost minions that can just smork you in the face and are kind of annoying to remove. Paladin, where it's like usually like more heal oriented and more like token-ish, I'd say.
We could
Like,
go on and on about each.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's like the general. Just usually like the decks have a specific. I wouldn't say usually always has a specific role, but like usually it's more catered toward one thing that it would usually do.
So I understand like that it's a very complex system. Like even just listening to all this, it's like, oh my god, I'm being fed a lot of information. What?
There's a lot of depth.
Yeah, it's a lot of depth and more to just playing like a simple card game, which is what I just viewed it as. I've played it for fun here and there, but I never gone like super in depth to the meta. What before we go, what will be one or two games you guys recommend to the audience to like go watch in an esports environment for?
Oh, watch for card games.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question, because Hearthstone's the good entry point, just because like the casters are good and it's an established scene and it's backed by a big company.
Magic's a little harder to watch.
Magic, you kind of need to know. They don't really explain what each card does. So I would recommend starting.
Honestly, Pokemon, like watching Pokemon, like card games, actually extremely informative. Like more than you actually think.
So like,
yeah.
What would be one Hearthstone match you guys would recommend to the viewers to?
There's so many.
There's one specific match I can remember. It was there's this pro player. This is a Russian guy. His name is Pavel. I think
Pavel, my brother.
He literally, there's a meme named after him called Paveling Book, where there's this mage spell called
Babbling
Book. I was gonna think what's the name of that spell card, where it adds a random spell to your hand, and basically anytime he played it, he always got the card he needed. It was like 3 tournament matches in a row where he was like looked like he was about to lose. He drew Babbling Book and got the card he needed to turn the game around.
I'll have to watch it myself.
And I think it was like a 2012 tournament with Firebat. That was really, really good. Because Firebat is known to
really, I don't know. There's not like, I'd say, iconic games that you absolutely have to see for either scene. Especially because meta's changed. So they have this thing called Standard, where for both games, where Standard for tournaments and stuff is only the cards from the past 2 years, plus like a classic set that kind of always stays around.
Mm-hmm.
So, like for example, the new expansion they're about to release for Hearthstone right now. Once that's released,
3 sets are gonna rotate.
Yeah, a year's worth of cards, which is 3 sets, so like 300 cards, are gonna go away.
Jeez.
So that the people like the meta shifts massively. So if you're gonna try to watch something recent, because otherwise you're gonna be watching something that's like no longer relevant. There's gonna be a lot of cards that don't see play anymore. So yeah, just kind of keep that in mind when you go to find the game if you want to watch one. The more recent, the better.
Okay, that sounds like a good idea. And I know we can go on this for hours on you guys. You seem very well knowledge and
There's a lot of complexity.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I can get more. I'm just really a little tilted. Yu-Gi-Oh didn't pop off with the actual card games on motorcycles.
Well, gentlemen, thank you once again for joining me. You guys, it's always a pleasure to do these podcasts with you guys.
Thank you for having me.
No problem.
Thank you. Next week we're talking about corn.
Next
Is it good for the environment? Find out next week.
Find out now on cornhub.com.
Find out next week where we talk about microtransactions.
That's actually something I want to talk to you about sometime, Double, because you and I have had some
you need
passionate debates.
Yes. Yo,
that's something that we're going to be
microtransactions,
and you're going to need to pull up fucking.
I'm going to let them ramble on for a little bit longer about that, but actually, what we're going to do next week is streaming, and the way it's kind of used in film, stream sniping. I'm going to get a couple of young streamers who are growing their broadcasts, including myself, onto the podcast, and we're going to get a good view of what's like streaming as a player, as a coach, and overall just streaming in general. So thank you everyone so much for watching. If you're watching us on YouTube, throw us a like, share it around with your friends, and if you want all notifications, hit that subscribe button right down below. And if you want to see me live, follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/NoLimitsNick. I'll have the Twitch channels of my two guests down in the description below. If you want to follow me on social media, follow me on Twitter @NoLimitsNick. That's simple. And as always, thank you everyone so much for listening. If you're on SoundCloud, give this a follow, share it with all your friends as well. I post these around every week. And as always, thank you for listening. All right, bye-bye.